Good evening. Let's call this meeting to order of the Bristol, Tennessee City Council meeting of July 13th, 2021. Mary Lee, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Fire Robin?
Here.
King?
Here.
Powers?
Here.
Luttrell?
Here.
Turner?
Here.
There are a number of opportunities to speak on matters of city business this evening. A sheet explaining those opportunities has been made available to you when entering the meeting room. As we go forward with tonight's agenda, I will note each time when public comment is welcome. In addition, a sign-up sheet has been provided as you enter City Council chambers for those individuals desiring to address City Council during the appearance of citizens section of our agenda. Tonight, I will lead us in the invocation, and following our invocation, I would like to ask Councilwoman Margaret Fire Robin to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please bow our heads. Loving Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help as we are gathered together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with the spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We ask that you would challenge each other to reach higher and farther to be the best we can. We ask this in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please stand up and please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The city charter requires the city council to select one of its members to serve as mayor and vice mayor each year at the first meeting in July. Accordingly, it would be in order for a motion to be made to choose a member to serve as mayor for the coming year. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue with Mayor Malin Luttrell in place. Malin has done an excellent job this past year as we have worked through various different issues regionally as well as locally, and I just think that he would be well suited to continue another year.
I'll second the motion.
Are there any additional comments or nominations for mayor? Excuse me.
We could make some comment.
Be careful now.
I'll just add to that also, having been in the position with the beginning of the pandemic, and we're not done yet, and Malin has done a great job and working with city manager, our public health officials, city council, et cetera, along those lines, in addition to all the other issues that are the issues that we work on a regular basis. You're special.
Yeah.
Thank you. I believe we're ready for a vote. Mary Lee, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Okay, may I now have a motion to select the vice mayor for the coming year?
I'll move to nominate current Vice Mayor Vince Turner for a second term as Vice Mayor.
I'll second the motion.
And my comment to that would be Vince has proven to be very fastidious in his research. He keeps us all on our toes and does some really great deep dives on information and shares with all of us very well. He's a great team player and has represented us well this past year as the Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, and I too concur.
Thank you.
Are there additional nominations for vice mayor? Hearing none, I believe we're ready for a vote. Mary Lee, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, let's now take a 15-minute recess. City Council invites each of you to join us in the cafeteria for for a brief reception honoring the new mayor and vice mayor, or current mayor and vice mayor. And call this meeting back to order. Mr. Sword, do you have any items to be added to the agenda this evening?
No, Mayor, the agenda is complete.
We have one proclamation and 3 recognitions on tonight's agenda. First, we have a proclamation designating the month of July 21 as Parks and Recreation Month. I would like to ask Councilwoman Lee Powers to read the proclamation. Mr. David Akard III, Chairman of the Parks and Recreation Commission, is with us this evening to accept the proclamation. And if Mr. Akard would step up to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had the privilege of serving on Parks and Rec in the past and recognizing that tourism is our greatest industry in Tennessee. It's incumbent on us to recognize recreational tourism, which we're hoping to expand on more in the future, but to recognize the beautiful parks that we have in our community. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Bristol, Tennessee, our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all of our citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. Parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. Parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, as well as a reduction of crime. Parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality. We have outstanding water quality here. Protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and provide habitat for wildlife. And our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate in the outdoors. Whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Bristol, Tennessee recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resource, now therefore the Mayor of Bristol, Tennessee hereby proclaims July 2021 as Park and Recreation Month. This is the 13th day of July 2021, signed by Mayor Madeline Luttrell.
Congratulations, Mayor Luttrell and Vice Mayor Turner. Known you both for many years, and glad to see you all serving still in the City Council here. No, it's a great honor, as always, to recognize Parks and Recreation that we have. It's been, like everything else, a really tough year, a strange year, where our director, Terry Napier, has done the best that he could with everything, and trying to keep the outdoors open so everyone could get out and use the recreation areas that we have. And we have such a beautiful area, Stills Creek Park being the biggest jewel that we have. But we have so many other parks. I know pickleball has really taken off on everything, and so that's been exciting, and trying to repurpose some courts that we didn't used to use and everything. And so it's just exciting what we have and the citizens have. I think we've all noticed it with all the new people moving in and everything. And, I just like to say I'm just a glass half full kind of guy. There's been a lot of news that the state of Tennessee didn't include the airport in the bribery to get people to come to their area. I think that's just because they know we don't need to bribe people to come to see what we have. People are flocking here by the droves anyway. So thank you very much.
Next, we would like to recognize this year's recipient of the Northeast Tennessee Tourism Association's Lifetime Achievement Award. I would like to ask Mr. John Luttrell, Director of Community Relations, to introduce this year's award winner.
When you say lifetime achievement, there's some certain things that come to mind, and there are a few people that have had a career as impressive as the individual we're going to honor this evening. To catalog this individual's career, one of the folks in my department spent a considerable amount of time discussing the years he spent in service to this community, and so I'd actually like to ask Ms. Ann Dunham from the Office of Community Relations to come and tell you all about this wonderful, storied career that we're honoring this evening.
Good evening. Oops. Imagine, if you will, that you're stuck in traffic. You're on your way to a special event that you've been looking forward to. You took time off work, you've traveled far from home, convinced your friends to come along, and you have a pocket full of very expensive tickets. And yet here you are, stuck in traffic. If you keep that scenario in mind, I think you can better appreciate tonight's recognition of David Metzger. A graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, David holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in transportation engineering. He joined the city of Bristol 36 years ago as transportation planning engineer, and in that time has developed traffic plans for 199 NASCAR events, 20 Rhythm and Roots festivals, the Epic Battle at Bristol, and hundreds of 5K races, outdoor concerts, holiday parades, community celebrations, and other events to bring visitors to our region. His first special event traffic plan consisted of just 2 barricades, 20 traffic cones, and a couple of guys in the back of a pickup truck. Today's plans are more than 80 pages long, and once completed, are distributed to 140 individuals from 9 cities, 4 counties, 3 state police agencies, 3 departments of transportation, and multiple federal agencies. He has become so proficient at traffic planning for major events, in fact, that planning officials throughout the country consult him, and officials from major sports organizations like the Green Bay Packers, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Masters Tournament have borrowed details from his plans. He routinely teaches courses for the University of Tennessee and presents workshops for transportation engineers throughout the state. And some years ago, he even took a short leave of absence from his job with the city to develop a traffic plan for the U.S. Army. David also shared with me that he once enrolled in a workshop for continuing education credit and arrived to find that the instructional manual being used was a traffic plan he created. His detailed checklist of detour routes, traffic cones, and no parking signs may not seem like the tools of the tourism industry until you consider how important the orderly flow of traffic really is. It's so important, in fact, that Speedway Motorsports officials insist there are 3 major T's that can impact the success of any event: tickets, toilets, and traffic. Those who have ever missed the first lap of a NASCAR race or the opening song of a favorite band while sitting in traffic surely understand how important the transportation plan is to the overall fan experience. Business owners who receive a share of the tourism dollars spent at restaurants, hotels, campgrounds, grocery stores, retail outlets, and other businesses understand how critical it is that fans enjoy their visit and return year after year. Anyone who has ever had life-saving aid delayed because of traffic congestion will appreciate the importance of carefully drafted detour routes and contingency plans that allow first responders to quickly reach those in need. The traffic plans David creates are focused on all of these things: creating an enjoyable experience, making Bristol a favorite destination, and the safety of visitors and locals when major events are underway. David will tell you he's simply the organizer, insists that there are hundreds of police officers, transportation officials, public works employees, and others who play a critical role in implementing these plans. And while this may be true, those who have witnessed the strategic flow of thousands of vehicles from a single venue, carefully making their way along secondary highways to major interstates in record time, can certainly appreciate the critical role that he plays in Bristol's tourism industry. He has perfected the practice of special event traffic planning and earned the respect of those who have worked beside him, those who have reaped the rewards of his attention to detail, and those who observed his sincere desire to showcase all that Bristol has to offer. In fact, when I asked him what he likes most about his job, he had this to say: A lot of traffic engineers you talk to specialize in different things. You have people who specialize in signals. You have people who specialize in bridges. You have people who specialize in special events. But working in a community the size of Bristol, I get to work on a lot of different things and with a lot of different people. I get to shine a positive light on my community. This positive light makes Bristol a good place to live and a great place to visit, and it recently earned David Metzger, Transportation Planning Engineer for the City of Bristol, Tennessee, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Northeast Tennessee Tourism Association.
I certainly do appreciate this honor. I was very surprised when I found out that other members of our city staff had placed me in nomination for this award, and it is something that is certainly very much appreciated. But as she mentioned in her introduction, without the many, many city workers in public safety and public works and parks and recreation, those kind of things, all the plans that I draw are just pretty maps on a piece of paper. It's to them who really make those plans work and operate and try to bring things better for the city of Bristol. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's for too many special events, not to be.
Next, we have National Association of Governmental Communications Award. Next, we would like to recognize our Departments of Community Relations and Parks and Recreation for the first place award in the Public Safety Announcement category by the National Association of Government Communicators. This national award recognizes the creative content of the COVID Girls video released during this recent pandemic. In addition, the video received second place honors in the non-paid social media category. I would like to ask Mr. John Luttrell, Director of Community Relations, to come to the podium to accept the award and speak to the significance of this recognition.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, Mr. Sora. Back in May, we did receive a rather pleasant surprise. Earlier this year, we had submitted a project for consideration by the National Association of Government Communicators for the 2021 Blue Pencil and Gold Screen Awards. This is an annual program which recognizes excellence in communication at all levels of government. The project we submitted, as you mentioned, was our COVID Girls PSA, which, just in case you finally managed to get the song out of your head, we'd like to play it for you once again.
Thank you for wearing a mask. It's a simple little thing we ask. Your mask protects me, and mine will protect you too. And if you threw a party, which you really probably shouldn't do, I will repeat at a distance of 6 feet. that it really shows you care. Thank you for wearing a mask.
So later this week, we'll make 1 year exactly since the idea for this project first emerged. You all might remember this time last year when each day saw considerable increases of new COVID-19 cases here in our county and across the state. At that time, virtually any content that we posted to social media related to the use of masks as a tool to slow the spread of the virus was immediately met with debate in the comments that quickly overshadowed the intentions of the original post. We knew we had to find some way to continue reinforcing the importance of mask usage without further exacerbating that type of discourse, but quite frankly, we were running out of ideas. One of the most positive outcomes resulting from the early days of the pandemic was increased communication and collaboration with our counterparts in other communities throughout the region, particularly in Kingsport and Johnson City. One project we were working together on was a simple social media graphic encouraging mask usage, which Kingsport took the lead on designing. It was a simple message of "Thank you for wearing a mask," with each of our mask-themed logos at the bottom. The final draft was sent around late on a Friday afternoon of what had been we'll call it a particularly challenging week. And for unknown reasons, that slogan, "Thank you for wearing a mask," adhered itself to the Golden Girls theme song in my head. And that ultimately gave rise to the notion that perhaps something like that could be a vehicle to carry the masking message while toning down some of the surrounding rhetoric. In that roughly 45-second video, we were able to package mask usage, social distancing, hand hygiene, temperature screenings, outdoor recreation in our city parks, and even curbside dining, all in a way that hopefully folks on either side of the masking debate would at least be able to find some levity in. The video was first posted to the city's Facebook and Twitter accounts on August 25th of last year. Since that time, it has amassed a total of more than 80,000 views, with hundreds of likes, shares, and surprisingly, mostly positive comments, making it one of our best performing pieces of all time. So back to the reason we're discussing it this evening. At a virtual ceremony held on May 26th, more than 50 local, state, tribal, and federal agencies were recognized by the NAGC across 35 award categories. Among the agencies receiving top honors that evening that you may or may not have heard of were the FBI, the U.S. Geological Survey, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and the National Park Service. I'm proud to say that the COVID Girls Project not only received first place honors in the public service announcement category, but also second place in non-paid social media outreach. We were unfortunately edged out by the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division in that category. The judges' comments noted that for the budget, this was a phenomenal campaign for mask wearing. It was fun and friendly. I should note that despite theories circulating in the comments of a 5 or 6 figure price tag, the total budget for this project outside of staff time was actually $39.42 in thrift store clothing for costumes. Having our work recognized obviously feels really nice, especially when it's a project that we put a lot of energy into. But beyond that, national level recognitions like this function almost like an advertisement for our community, for the innovative ways we deliver services, and in this case, the lengths we all went to in Bristol to keep our friends and families safe during a challenging time. We have submitted this project for some other potential recognition, so we're hopeful that we'll be able to put Bristol in the spotlight among even more of our peers across the country. But with that, I would like to recognize the individuals who made this project possible and ask them to come forward. From BTN TV, Mr. Brennan Dye and Mr. Scott Hill. And I know elsewhere in the building this evening is Miss Becky Olinger from the Parks and Recreation Department representing the COVID girls themselves. Although they're not with us this evening, I'd also like to express appreciation to the other ladies appearing on screen, Beth Carter, Karen McCook, and Brianna Stover, as well as to my friend Dr. Caitlin Monk for lending her voice to the song. So.
So our camera people going to speak?
They've got to run back up and keep the show rolling.
Call to duty.
So,
Okay, next, the city has over 340 full-time and part-time employees that serve the community on a daily basis. We frequently hear of employees that go above and beyond in their service. To that end, the Bristol First program has been developed to recognize their efforts. Tonight, we honor our latest recipients of the Bristol First Award. Mr. John Luttrell, Director of Community Relations, is present to give us a brief overview of the program and announce tonight's award winners.
Keeping the podium warm for a little while this evening. The Bristol First Award was first established in October of 2014 to recognize city employees for service to the public, leadership, service to other city employees, efficiency, creativity, and inventiveness. Nominations are accepted from fellow employees, elected officials, and community members throughout the year. Since the award's inception, 57 employees have been recognized for their achievements, special contributions, and dedication to public service. Tonight, we add 2 additional names to this list. These gentlemen are from the engineering division of our Development Services Department. Most often, we receive nominations for this program from community members who either fill out the online form or contact the city directly to share their experiences. A number of other nominations are generated by city staff recognizing one another for their excellence in public service. The circumstances that led to tonight's award presentation were actually brought to our attention in the form of a Facebook post. Despite multiple attempts, we were unfortunately unable to connect with the original poster, so community relations staff took steps to gather additional information and formally nominate these individuals for the Bristol First Award. Through this process, we learned that on the morning of May 24th, while en route to a work site, these employees noticed a car with a flat tire being driven very slowly through a neighborhood. They approached the driver, a small business owner who was on her way to an appointment with a client, and offered to help. Not only was the tire beyond repair, but the driver did not have the proper tools in her vehicle to replace it. Despite challenging conditions, including rather high temperatures that day, these gentlemen were able to help change the tire and get her quickly back on the road on the way to her client. In her Facebook post, which included the photo that you see above, she noted, "I got a flat on the way to a client's house this morning, and they stopped to rescue me. They stuck it out even though nothing went right, and it was 10,000 degrees outside. You guys are the best, and I'm happy my city surveying is in good hands." To those reading the post, she also added, "This is your friendly reminder to be a nice human." As previously mentioned, this award program was designed to recognize city staff who, by going above and beyond what is asked of them in their day-to-day jobs, provide outstanding and courteous service to our community. If you ask either of the gentlemen being recognized this evening, they will be quick to tell you that what they did was nothing special and certainly not deserving of any special recognition. It would have been easy enough for them to have observed a motorist with a flat and thought, "That's someone else's job to deal with. I've got my own work to do." Instead, their first instinct in that situation was to ask, "How can we help?" It speaks not only of their individual character, but of the culture that the council members and staff seated at the front of the room and throughout the auditorium this evening work hard to establish in this organization each and every day. Examples of that culture are what this award program seeks to recognize. Tonight, we express our thanks to Mr. Jeff Tester and Mr. Steve Cross. Would you please come forward? Mr. Cross was not able to be here with us this evening, but we will be certain he receives his award.
Okay, next on the agenda was presentations, but we have no presentations or public hearings tonight. We also, at this time, would be going into appearance of citizens, but we've had no one to sign up for that tonight either. But is there anyone else in attendance this evening that would like to address council? Seeing none, we'll move on to appointments. We have appointments to be made for several boards and commissions this evening. First, we have one appointment to be made to the Beer Board. The appointment will fulfill an unexpired term of office ending January 31, 2024. The candidate is Matthew Slagle. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidate? I mean, I've known
Matt for a long time. I think, and I spoke to him prior to him turning his application. I think he'll be a good addition to the beer board.
All right. Fire Robin votes for Matthew Slagle. Keene votes for Matthew Slagle. Luttrell votes for Matthew Slagle. Turner votes for Matthew Slagle. And Powers votes for Matthew Slagle.
Next, we have one appointment to be made for the Better Property Board. The appointments will serve a 3-year term ending June 30, 2024. The candidate is Mr. Randall Cook. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Mr. Cook?
Mr. Cook's been on Better Property Board for at least one term, maybe two. He worked with Habitat for Humanity, and he gives back to the community a lot. I think he works well with that board. So,
Fire Robin votes for Randall Cook. Keene votes for Randall Cook. Turner votes for Randall Cook. Powers votes for Randall Cook. And Luttrell votes for Randall Cook.
Next, we have one appointment to be made to the Board of Code of Appeals. The appointment will serve a 5-year term ending June 30, 2026. The candidate is Mr. George Knoll. Would anyone like to speak on Mr. Knoll's behalf?
Mr. Knoll has been willing to serve on a couple of different boards, and he owns a beautiful home in Fairmount. I forget what, y'all probably know the name of it, that they have been rehabbing as a second job for what his real job is. Anyway, so I think he's familiar with the codes from personal experience, et cetera.
Fire Robin votes for George Knoll. Keene votes for George Knoll. Luttrell votes for George Knoll. Powers votes for George Knoll. And Turner votes for George Knoll.
Next, we have one appointment to be made to the Bristol Public Library Foundation. The appointment will fulfill an unexpired term ending June 30, 2022. The candidate is Mr. Andrew Snyder. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidate?
I'll speak on behalf of Andrew. Andrew is a lifelong resident of Bristol. He's an English teacher at Tennessee High School. He has a young daughter that he often visits the library with. I've known Andrew's family ever since Andrew has been with us, so I think he would serve us well on the Library Foundation Board.
Fire Robin votes for Andrew Snyder. Keene votes for Andrew Snyder. Luttrell votes for Andrew Snyder. Powers votes for Andrew Snyder. And Turner votes for Andrew Snyder.
Next, we have one appointment to be made to the Community Development Advisory Committee. The appointment will serve a 3-year term ending April 30, 2024. The candidate is Ms. Brittany Fleener. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Ms. Fleener?
I'll be glad to, and she's here this evening. So Brittany currently works with Branch House, and that is very much involved with the community, and I know what I do in the community. Brittany's frequently at different meetings and knows what's going on and has a good idea of some of the needs and some of the work that we need to do together. A Community Development Advisory Board is a great board that works with Christina Blevins and bring different experiences in to share together to do that work. So you'll make a great contribution. Thank you.
And I agree. Brittany has a servant's heart, and it's a good thing. Thank you for your service.
Robin votes for Brittany Fleener. Keene votes for Brittany Fleener. Powers votes for Brittany Fleener. Turner votes for Brittany Fleener. And Luttrell votes for Brittany Fleener.
Next, we have 3 appointments to be made to the Emergency Communications District Board of Directors. The appointments will be for a 4-year term ending June 30, 2025. The candidates are Mr. Adam Dye, Mr. Wallace Elliott, and Mr. Eddie Wampler. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidates?
Good group. Appreciate their
Very good.
service.
Dittos. A lot of experience from these folks.
Right.
Absolutely.
Robin votes for Adam Dye, Wallace Elliott, and Eddie Wampler. Keene votes for Adam Dye, Wallace Elliott, and Eddie Wampler. Luttrell votes for Adam Dye, Wallace Elliott, and Eddie Wampler. Powers votes for Adam Dye, Wallace Elliott, and Eddie Wampler. And Turner votes for Adam Dye, Wallace Elliott, and Eddie Wampler.
Next, we have 1 appointment to be made to the Health and Education Facilities Board. The appointment is for a 6-year term ending June 30, 2027. The candidate is Ms. Rita Hawkins. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Ms. Hawkins?
We appreciate her willingness to serve for sure.
Robin votes for Rita Hawkins. Keene votes for Rita Hawkins. Luttrell votes for Rita Hawkins. Powers votes for Rita Hawkins. And Turner votes for Rita Hawkins.
Next, we have 1 appointment to be made to the Housing Board. The appointment will be, excuse me, the appointment will fulfill an unexpired term of office ending March 31, 2026. The candidate is Ms. Sandra Leonard. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Ms. Leonard?
Don't know Ms. Leonard, but I talked with her on the phone, and I think she sounds like she would be well suited. She had done her homework to learn what's involved because it's all of our boards are a responsibility. The Housing Board means you need to learn a lot about all the different housing, et cetera. And I think she's prepared to do that work and excited about it.
Robin votes for Sandra Leonard. Keene votes for Sandra Leonard. Powers votes for Sandra Leonard. Turner votes for Sandra Leonard. And Luttrell votes for Sandra Leonard.
Next, we have 3 appointments to be made to the Parks and Recreation Commission. The appointments will be for 3-year terms ending June 30, 2024. The candidates are Mr. Ben Cowan, Mr. Doug Harmon, Mr. Justin Hutchinson, and Mr. Charles Taylor, and Ms. Kate White. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidates?
First, I'd like to say we have 5 candidates for 3 slots, so that makes it a little more difficult job for us up here. And we always want to express that we appreciate people's willingness to serve on our boards and commissions. And everybody brings their own talents, and in talking with people and looking at applications, there's a lot of talent that can be brought to the board through the folks who've applied this evening.
Good group of folks, and it is a difficult decision. And by the way, several folks on here that are very athletic, so I think it'll fit really well within our Parks and Rec.
This might take more than 1 vote for getting our majority.
Making sure I've got them all here. Okay. All right, Fire Robin votes for Bennett Cowan, Justin Hutchinson, and Kate White. Keene votes for Doug Harmon, Charles Taylor, Kate White. Luttrell votes for, hang on just a second here. Luttrell votes for Charles Taylor, Kate White, and Bennett Cowan. Powers votes for Doug Harmon, Charles Taylor, and Kate White. And Turner votes for Doug Harmon, Justin Hutchison, and Charles Taylor. So we have Charles Taylor receiving 4 votes, Kate White receiving 4 votes, and Doug Harmon receiving 3 votes. So Kate White, Charles Taylor, and Doug Harmon are appointed to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Okay, next, we have 3 appointments to be made to the Planning Commission. The appointments will be for a term of 3 years ending June 30, 2024. The candidates are Mr. Kelly Graham, Mr. Andrew Snyder, and Mr. Mark Webb. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidates?
Kelly Graham's been on for several terms. He runs a good meeting and is well-informed. Also, Mark Webb has been on several terms, and he has a lot of history to help. He also has served as Sullivan County, our representative from our Planning Commission to Sullivan County Planning Commission. And Andrew Snyder is a new applicant with a vacancy. We can say Scott Gaynor was on our Planning Commission, and he has moved to Pittsburgh with his job. Anyway, we've heard from Ms. Powers about Andrew Snyder. I think he'll be a great addition to Planning Commission.
Yeah, I spoke with him as well yesterday, and I think he's, got a lot of good, fresh ideas to bring to the table, and we always need to have new folks stepping up.
Yeah, also he's got a young child, so that getting some younger folks involved is great.
Fire Robin votes for Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. Keene votes for Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. Luttrell votes for Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, Mark Webb. Turner votes for Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb. And Powers votes for Kelly Graham, Andrew Snyder, and Mark Webb.
Next, we have 1 appointment to be made this evening to the Power Board. The term of the appointment is for a period of 4 years ending June 30, 2025. The candidate is Mr. Larry Clark. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Mr. Clark?
I'll speak on behalf of Larry. I nominated him the last time when he put his name forward to serve. I think Larry's very conscientious. He's done a good job. He has served as chair of the board and is very committed to the success of BTES. So I'm happy to support Larry again this time.
Keene votes for Larry Clark. Luttrell votes for Larry Clark. Turner votes for Larry Clark. Powers votes for Larry Clark. And Fire Robin votes for Larry Clark.
Next, we have 2 appointments to be made to the Tree Board. The term of the appointments will be for a period of 4 years ending June 30, 2025. The candidates are Ms. Mindy Bechtold and Ms. Jean Lusardi. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidates?
I think both of them are incumbents, and I know at least Jean Lusardi is a master gardener. I think both of them are master gardeners, so very enthusiastic about serving on the tree board and working with the certification for the Tree City USA, thank you. And I can't read your lips that far, dear. Tree City USA, and anyway, I think they're both enthusiastic and pleased to serve, and very complimentary of our department and of Terry's work, and Jeremy's.
Okay. Fire Robin votes for Mindy Bechtel and Jean Lusardi. Keene votes for Mindy Bechtel and Jean Lasardi. Powers votes for Mindy Bechtel and Jean Lasardi. Luttrell votes for Mindy Bechtel and Jean Lasardi. And Turner votes for Mindy Bechtel and Jean Lasardi.
Okay, tonight, you going to say something?
Yeah, just before we leave that, I think, I didn't go back and check all the different listings on the website, but I think that the tree board still has a couple of openings, so just letting folks know that. And also that the Better Properties Board has two openings. So hoping to have some folks who are interested in serving on those boards make application. And also would note, I don't think this was said earlier if I wasn't paying attention, we had a lot of appointments tonight. A lot of them come due the end of June. Also, some of them come due a little earlier than that, but we saved them till July, which came about with if we have elections and have a new council, it gives them opportunity to make appointments to our board. So it's a busy meeting for appointments. So
Well,
thank
and
you.
I would just add to what Margaret said, our boards are so important. You know, we need people from the private sector to serve. It gives us more balance. While the recommendations do come through council, it's important that we have more and more people to participate. That way, it's truly reflective of the community and not just of the council. So I would encourage people throughout the year, as different board opportunities become available, that you put your name forward so that you can be a part of what is becoming more and more a thriving community that is very progressive in its mindset.
Yes. Okay, tonight we have two ordinances on our agenda to be considered on the first reading. The first item is ordinance 21-10, amending Chapter 7 of the zoning ordinance as it relates to floodplain districts. Mr. Soar, would you please summarize ordinance 21-10?
Yes, Mayor. Over the past several months, the Planning Commission and planning staff have reviewed the city's floodplain ordinance, which is contained in Chapter 7 of our zoning ordinance. The ordinance establishes regulation and guides development to ensure compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. The National Flood Insurance Program is required in order for the city and its residents and the community to be eligible to obtain flood insurance. Our existing floodplain ordinance is modeled after an ordinance that was provided to us by the staff, by the state of Tennessee. But in addition to the National Flood Insurance Program, our city participates in a community rating system, or the CRS, which is a voluntary program that recognizes floodplain management practices that exceed the minimum standards set forth in the National Flood Insurance Program. The city currently has a CRS Class A rating, which essentially provides our property owners with a 10% discount on flood insurance rates. In January of this year, the CRS implemented a new Class 8 standard and requires the city to adopt and enforce a 1-foot freeboard requirement for all residential buildings constructed or substantially reconstructed where the base flood elevations have been determined on the flood insurance map. While this has been a long-standing practice of staff, it has not been codified and would be necessary to do so to retain the Class 8 rating. So with that, I'm going to ask Tim Beavers, our Director of Development Services, to come to the podium and detail to you and the public the proposed amendments.
Yes, good evening. Mr. Soar did a fantastic job summarizing everything you wanted to know about our participation in the NFIP. So I'll skip to the next slide and just talk about some changes with this new ordinance. It came about in order to maintain, as Mr. Soar mentioned, a CRS rating of 8, that new written requirement of elevating your mechanical equipment in your home, such as your hot water heater, your HVAC system, things like that, be 1 foot above the flood elevation, the base flood elevation. The city has always done that in practice. It was never codified in the ordinance, the previous 2010 ordinance. So in order to maintain our Class 8 rating and get that 10% discount for the people that participate in the flood insurance program. We have to put that in the ordinance, codified in an ordinance. So that's one reason for this. And then we did look at the model ordinance from the state of Tennessee and look at the changes they've made in that model ordinance since we adopted in 2010. So these changes you see up on the screen are just a summary of those changes in that ordinance. They did have some definition updates, and you can see the things there, the city manager, flood or flooding, regulatory flood protection elevation, and the state coordinating agency. They also had in section D, the administration, they want clarified what type of cost estimates they want when there are substantial improvements to a building. If those cost improvements are 50% or more of the value, then that building would have to be flood-proofed or flood elevated, if possible, to the new standards. It also made a new requirement, sort of changed one previously on elevation certificates. We always took 2 times, one before they poured any floor slabs. We took elevation, like a design elevation certificate, and then once they formed and poured the slab, we would get an elevation certificate on that. But they want a finished construction of the whole building elevation certificate now, and that's looking once again at that HVAC equipment and your MEC equipment in buildings. So that is why that's in there. Also, Section E, and this is the heart of it that made us look at our ordinances, that we want to codify the 1-foot freeboard requirement for the machinery and equipment and to maintain our Class 8 rating for our community. And then they had some additional language to put in there about conditional letters of map revisions for options for people if they wanted to encroach in the regulatory floodway, and also some revisions to the standards for AO and AH zones. It's in the state model, so we adopt the state model because that's what's recommended by the NFIP in the state of Tennessee. But we do not have those shallow flooding zones in our corporate limits. So those, while the language is in there, we do not have any AO or AH zones in the corporate limits. With that, we did go at their June 21st, 2021 meeting. The Planning Commission did consider this update and did pass a favorable recommendation unanimously to the City Council for approval. With that, I can answer any questions you may have.
I've got a couple, and I apologize. Normally, I have looked into this some. So, for this 10% discount that we'll be receiving, so if there are, so we're talking about $100,000 worth of policies throughout the city would be $10,000 discount of. And this is strictly just for the 10% discount of what we're talking about here, of what the cost of these new additions are going to be. And that's mine. And maybe I just don't understand it enough of that, I understand of what we have to do for the flood insurance, but of what we are adding right now, the 1 foot, is, so all of this is just to get a 10% discount.
The 1 foot requirement is a big point getter in your CRS rating system, and you get so many points, you get to be Class 9, Class 8, Class 7. We are Class 8. There's one other city of Knoxville that's Class 6. So that's really the only people in Tennessee below us. I think the biggest thing to take out of it, yes, the 1 foot requirement of both the structure elevation and the mechanical equipment is important to get that Class 8 rating and get that additional 5% discount. Please remember that discount, while there's existing structures out there that weren't flood-proof to a standard decades ago, years ago, new construction, you're not going back and requiring them to do anything retroactive, but if you are putting your home in a flood zone, a new home or new structure, then that would be the requirement, and that person would benefit greatly from their insurance by having that for that new construction. So
well, that's
the main. That's the main.
Of the 5% of all this sounds quite expensive to get of initially that you're going to pay to get here, and for a 10% discount in what your premium is going to be. And I'm not even sure, Lee, you may know the fact of what a normal premium is for a flood insurance premium, but I guess that's what I'm struggling with here, of that we are, of what we're doing is not to keep our flood insurance, but it's for the 10% discount on the policy, but of what this is going to require for any new structure or anything else, of the cost of that. Is it really, and that's my question, I guess, is it really worth it?
And it depends on obviously the amount of the structure being built is huge. And what would that structure be? What would the cost for insurance be if the equipment was not elevated?
Right.
And that's hard to answer on a
Right.
average basis. Like I said, I think the main thing is that we practiced that all along in the city, and we're just codifying it now, because of before, once again, it wasn't written in that spec. The 1 foot of the finished floor was in our flood ordinances for a long time.
So what do our surrounding cities, where are they as far as Kingsport and Johnson City and the surrounding around us? Do they participate in this?
Yes.
Or where do they
I
fall?
think Kingsport is a 10, a CRS rating of 10, which is basically 0% discount. Every point is 5%. And Johnson City, I believe, is a 9, if I recall correctly. One of them's a 9 and one of them's a 10. And Bristol, Virginia is not in the CRS system.
Like I said, I'm asking these questions because I just want to make sure that we're not
And I think where you would see,
any as far as development of impeding development of having these other costs associated with it for a 5 or 10% discount in individual premiums that others are going to get.
right. I think your biggest cost savings will be for your commercial buildings, because obviously they're more expensive, so their premiums can be quite high.
This is throughout the city also.
Yes. So their premiums can be quite high for that.
So there was some concern on the east end of town about any change in the floodplain mapping. And you confirmed for me, so that everybody knows, that that there was no change in the floodplain mapping on the east end of town. In particular, we were thinking about Sinking Creek and Middlebrook Lake and Tammany, help me out here, whatever else is.
Correct. The new flood mapping that FEMA is in the process of working through all the public notifications and the meetings they have to have regarding that, and that's due to be published and become effective in early 2023. Really, inside our corporate limits is only for Beaver Creek, a detailed study of Beaver Creek, and that's associated with the core project is one reason they did that. All the other creeks in the city that are mapped in the flood zone, there are no proposed changes in those creeks, be it Sinking Creek, Cedar Creek, Little Creek, name the other creeks throughout our city. So really the only change to the mapping, they'll use new maps for those areas that Beaver Creek run through, how they're numbered. But outside of that, the other areas will be the September 2006 mapping still with the new update.
Were there any areas of potential development that the Planning Commission or staff found that this could affect?
Well, I think you'll see some changes along Beaver Creek, nothing substantial. I mean, it looked very similar to the old mapping. Obviously, the core project did have an impact on some flooding elevations, and did see some changes there, but they're substantial. I don't recall any substantial changes in the mapping, the draft products that are out.
But the core project actually helped our flooding by
Yes.
10 or 12 inches in most, is that
The,
right?
the final number will be in that mapping when they publish it, but it did help. It did work. Without it, the flood elevation would have been higher. Yes, correct.
So really, for us, it's, for those that are buying flood insurance, it's nothing but a positive win. Am I, is that fair to say?
Well, I think, and once again, it depends on your discount and how much your insurance is costing. I mean, it's 10%. I mean, most of us, when we buy something, if we can get a 10% discount, would be happy, but there is an expense to some. It's not as difficult as you would think to elevate some of that equipment. And, but it is a discount to their policies, whatever they have. The benefit cost ratio may be spread out longer for some, smaller type structures, but the bigger structures will be they can see some substantial 10%. I mean, I know, it could be thousands of dollars a year for some of them off their flood insurance.
But as far as you mentioned equipment, and you mentioned water heaters and things of that nature, as far as the actual structure goes, like foundations and things of that nature, it would adhere to about where we are right now. Is that correct?
Well, currently, our current, the way the ordinance is written, you have to elevate the finished floor elevation. Any finished floor elevation has to be 1 foot above the regulatory flood, or the base flood elevation. So this, once again, in practice, we have always done that with the mechanical equipment also. It's just in the 2010 ordinance, the verbiage wasn't in there about the mechanical equipment. So really the only change in this is adding the verbiage about the mechanical equipment having to be 1 foot above the base flood elevation.
So the rest of it is in the ordinance?
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is just the mechanical
Yes.
equipment?
Yes.
Is that inside and outside, or only, is that everywhere?
Any mechanical, your HVAC unit, if it was exterior, would have to be 1 foot above the base flood
And then
elevation.
But
Inside also.
But if inside is already elevated,
That's why I say in
so it's
practice.
got to be elevated above the current elevation
Bases,
Right,
foot.
the bases.
yes.
I'm not the insurance savant, and I don't ever claim to be. But I will say this is pretty common sense. You may say, oh, well, you've got to put it up a foot. Well, you can either put it up a foot now, or you can have it destroyed and then put it up a foot. And that's the bottom line. If you live in a floodplain, and people need to be very cognizant as to where by elevation their home is, or if they're planning to build, where they're going to build it. But water is the most damaging element that we have as far as, water, wind, and fire. And so any preventative that we can take and get a discount in the process of, plus it elevates our community with a greater standing, I think it's a good thing. I think a lot of times people have not checked into the elevations of their home's location or of where they have intended to build. And it is truly not to penalize, but it is truly to protect. And I think we need to understand that. And a lot of people just don't understand the whole flood situation, flood insurance situation. And I know the city has really worked hard. We've sent out flyers especially to people that live in the flood zones. And we keep pushing it as hard as we can. And so, but we do have some issues with flooding in our community. And the core project did help, but nevertheless, I know for a fact we still have some issues with flooding.
So I'll just add that it's a best practice with doing these certifications, et cetera, and the bottom line isn't to get points or a discount. It's exactly what Councilwoman Powers said. It's to prevent damage. So we want to protect folks and prevent damage. And then, we get points and we get discounts on top of that.
Because if you get water and all this mechanical stuff, then you're prone to fire, and then you've just got a whole world of hurt. So,
And we can say, Planning Commission, particularly Jason Boer, had lots of questions and that prompted lots of discussion. And Planning Commission felt very good about the couple of real changes and the codifying, so.
Okay, this is just the first reading anyway, right?
Right.
It's first reading, yes. If approved tonight, it'll be considered next month on second reading. If it's not approved tonight, then it just dies.
No, I was just asking the question because I truly do not, I'm trying to understand it all and of where we're going here.
Well, when
Is
you
the
first
benefit-
started talking about it, I was like,
The
I had the
cost.
same question, but after I thought about it a little bit, and I appreciate the question.
It's very worthy of the conversations, absolutely. Any additional questions from staff? Is there a motion to take action on this item?
Move to approve this flood zone ordinance number 2110 on first reading.
I'll second 2110.
Would any member of council like to have additional discussion on ordinance 21-10? Hearing none, would anyone in the audience like to address council on this matter? Seeing none, hearing none, I believe we're ready for a vote. Mary Lee, please call the roll.
Robin,
Yes.
Keane,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is the reading of ordinance 21-11, amending Chapter 50 of the Code of Ordinances as it relates to smoking in public parks and playgrounds. Mr. Soar, would you please summarize ordinance 21-11?
Yes, Mayor. Earlier this spring, City Council approved Ordinance 21-7 on second reading, which prohibited smoking in publicly owned playgrounds. And this was following the approval of Public Chapter 529 by the General Assembly in 2020, which provided local governments with the statutory authority to prohibit smoking in public playgrounds. They defined playground as any indoor or outdoor facility intended for recreational use by children and owned by the local government. In addition, they defined smoking as burning any tobacco product or hemp product or other drug or substance, but they did not include vapor products in that definition. Then the 2021 General Assembly approved Public Act 551, which did add to the definition of smoking the use of vapor products. And in addition, they broadened the areas in which the prohibition could be applicable to include public parks, greenways, and other public property accessible by youth. So this was discussed with City Council at our recent work session, and it was suggested that we bring this back to you in terms of an amendment to Section 5026-1 of our Code of Ordinances to include. This would in essence just supplant 21-7 from earlier this year. It would add vaping products to the definition of smoking, and it broadens the areas in which smoking would be prohibited to include not only playgrounds but now public parks and greenways and other public spaces in which youth could be in presence.
And so this aligns us with Senate Bill number 28 because
Yes.
it mentions the vapor products as well.
Anyone have any questions for staff? Is there a motion to take action on this item?
Move to approve ordinance 21-11 to amend our Chapter 50 and align with the state for prohibiting smoking in public parks, public playgrounds, and other public property, and pretty excited that I think it makes it easier to define and to enforce, and it certainly helps protect our children from secondhand smoke, which we know is a hazard, so it's great.
I'll second.
Any member of council like to further discuss ordinance 21-11?
I'll just say it's a good thing we passed it. They've already put it up on the digital billboard that we've done this, so good job, council.
Well, actually, we need to bring it back next month for second reading,
Well,
so.
it's already up that we did it, so it's an easy one.
Would anyone in the audience like to address council on this matter? Hearing none, I believe we're ready for a vote. Mary Lee, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Fire Robin,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes,
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Next, we have Resolution 21-57, confirming the appointment of a student member to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Mr. Soar, would you please summarize this matter for the public?
Yes, Mayor. In addition, as council's aware, we made a number of appointments, or you made a number of appointments earlier this evening. This one is a little bit different in that it doesn't come to you in the form of an application like the others. But this is a student appointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission. As council's aware, the commission is comprised of 12 members, with 2 members being selected by the Tennessee High School staff. And Dr. Kim Kirk, principal at Tennessee High School, has recommended that Mr. Logan Tudor be appointed to serve in this capacity. The appointment of Mr. Tudor would be through the period of May 30th, 2023.
Does any member of council have a question for staff? Is there a motion to take action on this item?
motion to approve Resolution 2157, confirming the appointment of a student member to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
I'll second.
Would any member of council like to discuss Resolution 21-57?
I'll just appreciate that we have student representation, and also appreciate that there's 2 that stagger terms so that they aren't by themselves as young people, and also that we have a good rotation.
Would anyone in the audience like to address council? Hearing none, I believe we're ready to vote. Mary Lee, please call the roll.
Fire Robin,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes,
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
This brings us to the consent agenda. Mr. Soar, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, this will be a lengthy read, as is typical from our July meetings. First item is minutes of the June 1st, 2021 City Council meeting, minutes of the June 10th, 2021 Call City Council meeting, minutes of the June 22nd, 2021 City Council work session, Resolution 2158 awarding a bid for the purchase of fire suppression equipment, Resolution 2160 awarding a bid for the purchase of delivered stone and sand, Resolution 2161 awarding a bid for the purchase of stone and sand on a picked-up basis, Resolution 2162 awarding a bid for the purchase of in-place asphalt, Resolution 2163 awarding a bid for the purchase of bulk asphalt products, Resolution 2164 awarding a bid for the purchase of bulk concrete products, Resolution 2165 awarding bid for the purchase of rollout refuse containers, Resolution 2166 awarding bids for the purchase of bulk water and sewer supplies, Resolution 2167 awarding bid for the purchase of an automated side loader refuse collection vehicle, Resolution 2168 authorizing the purchase of field reporting software support, Resolution 2169 authorizing the purchase of software support for a computer-aided dispatch system, Resolution 21-7, authorizing a standard abbreviated form of agreement between the owner and the architect for design of new Fire Station 2. Resolution 2171, authorizing the purchase of software support for the financial software system. Resolution 2172, approving an agreement with Believe in Bristol for funding support. Resolution 2173, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Birthplace of Country Music, Inc. for the support and operation of the Bristol Country Music Museum. Resolution 2174, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Bristol Chamber of Commerce for program support for fiscal 2022. Resolution 2175, authorizing appropriation agreement with the Bristol Regional Tourism Marketing Corporation for fiscal 2022. Resolution 2176, authorizing an appropriation agreement with Family Promise of Bristol. Resolution 2177, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Fairmount Foundation Center for the Arts. Resolution 2178, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Second Harvest Food Bank of Northeast Tennessee. Resolution 2179, authorizing an appropriation agreement with Theater Bristol. Resolution 2180, authorizing payment in support of the agenda item United Way of Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia in fiscal 2022. And Resolution 2181, authorizing payment in support of Network Sullivan Partnership for fiscal 2022. And lastly, Resolution 2182, authorizing approval of the Tri-Cities Regional Airport Foreign Trade Zone number 204 financial contribution.
Would any member of council like any item to be removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the items included in the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Mary Lee, please call the roll.
Feierabend,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
This brings us to our Board of Education Liaison Report. And Dr. Tudor is here with us today to give us a great update.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'd like to start by thanking you all for the great conversation at our joint meeting this afternoon. I'm encouraged by the conversation that we had. I think the more time we can spend together, the better off we'll be in our partnership. So I appreciate that support and your willingness to invest your time in having conversation with us. We've had a very busy summer, as you can imagine. We've been obviously preparing for the next school year. You've mentioned some of the legislative changes that you all have had to adjust to. We've had to adjust to those as well. We had to have mandatory summer school, which is not necessarily new to us. We always have summer school programming, but it was a much larger scale this summer. We had well over 300 students participating at the elementary level in grades 1 through 5 at Fairmount Elementary for the month of June, and then we had over 200 participate in grades rising sixth grade through seniors at Tennessee High School. So that's much larger than we've ever had before, particularly at the secondary level. Just speaks to, number one, the volume of need from our community, that our families need a safe place for their children to be in the summer, but also an opportunity for us to spend time with our children and help them recoup and recover from the effects of COVID and having an interrupted school year. So we were encouraged by the participation. We've continued with our summer book bus this summer. I think this is the last week of that, actually, and summer meal opportunities. For the month of June, we served over 25,000 meals. So again, that speaks to the volume of need in our community, that our families have continued to take advantage of that opportunity. We have received word, I may have already told you this, but we received word several months ago that we'll be able to offer free meals to our students again this coming school year, every student, free breakfast and lunch throughout the school year. So that's another great benefit. We've been busy filling administrative vacancies. So as you know, Becky Adams retired from our district after many years of service, and we were fortunate to steal away Tara Music from you, and she's been acclimated to our environment, and she's a wonderful asset. Thank you for sharing. I know you didn't willingly share her with us, but I appreciate that very much. We have a great team at Tennessee Middle School. Seymour Ray has been promoted to principal. Dr. Vonda Beavers has transferred from Avoca Elementary back to, she was actually previously at Vance, so graciously agreed to go back there and support that team. Jeff Mustard promoted from an elementary position to assistant principal there as well, and Carlinda Shaw, who's a teacher at Tennessee High School, now going to be assistant principal. We've been able to steal from our neighbors and hired a principal for Anderson, Brett Herron, and he was previously an administrator in Kingsport. And at Avoca, we hired Denise McKee, who was previously a principal in Hawkins County. Jane Leo was promoted from program assistant at Fairmount to Holston View principal, so she's settling in there. Dr. Coleman, Christy Coleman, who was previously at Holston View, student services supervisor. Dr. Jared Day is our ESSER director, so we have lots of money to manage, and he's going to be responsible for that. And Robin Blair, special education director. So we're getting our folks in place. Lots of summer in-service training and happening for our teachers this summer as well. Obviously, cleaning our school facilities and getting those prepared for students. We are working currently on a Stone Castle accessibility project, so we are adding handicap accessible seating that we have desperately needed for a long time. It'll be a permanent fixture, but it's phase 1. We will have phase 2 coming, but this phase 1 will get us prepared to add handicap seating on the home side for prior to this current football season, and then we'll move into phase 2, which will be a much larger project, hopefully going into next football season. So we're in the middle of that. I'd like to cordially invite you to our ribbon cutting and open house for Tennessee Middle School. If you can believe it, we are less than 3 weeks away from our first day of school, and so on August 2nd at 1 p.m. we'll be having our ribbon cutting ceremony for that facility. And then we'll have a public open house, so we'd like to invite the public after that event from 1:30 to 2:30 to tour the facility. We are very, very excited about that opportunity for our students and staff to have such a state-of-the-art, beautiful, brand-new school. So if you are on Facebook, social media, actually Burwell Construction just posted some recent pictures, so you can get a glimpse of what it's starting to look like. We're very excited about sharing that with the public. We have freshman orientation coming up July 22nd at Tennessee High School. We'll begin deploying our laptops. We collected all those for the summer so we could refresh those. We'll distribute those on July 26th and 27th at all the school sites this year. So rather than collecting or going to deploy them at Tennessee High School, each individual school is deploying them. Our teachers come back on July 28th. We have our first student day on August 2nd. Like I mentioned, that's a 2-hour student day. And then our first full student day is August 4th. So we are, like I said, 3 weeks away from starting a new school year. So we're excited about that. Do you all have any questions for me?
Is it going to be finished?
Pardon?
Is it going to be finished?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be finished.
The only question I would ask that I know a lot of parents have been curious about is, what is our school system's position on wearing masks coming back into the classroom?
So we have a work session this week with our school board, so we have not taken an official position for this coming school year. We just received word that the CDC put out guidance last Friday, actually, and we're waiting to actually have a conversation tomorrow with our health department, Sullivan County Health Department. So we're trying to gather all that information, and then I'll share that with the board for them to make an informed decision. I will say that for summer school, we had masks were recommended but not required. We had 0 cases at either facility at any grade level, no staff, no students with any reported cases. So I feel like we successfully managed summer school and kind of tested that environment. We did have some elementary age students who did wear masks consistently. I don't believe any of our staff did. But so we were fortunate that we were successful this summer. I'm not sure what that will look like, going into the school year. And it may be that we start the school year off in one way, and we'll have to continue to monitor the environment and the COVID cases in our area and make decisions as necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to city manager's report.
Yes, Mayor, I have just a handful of items. I'd like to remind council of the site visit. It's a drop-in site visit tomorrow afternoon at 2000 West State Street. This is a site, this is with the Ballot Health property, the site of the former site of the Wellmont Wellness Center. It will be the drop-in will be from 1 to 5. Mr. Napier will be there along with representatives from Ballard's Realty Group. So I encourage you to take the tour and provide us some feedback on next steps and so forth if there is a desire to take next steps. Also, I would remind the members of council who serve on the network's board meeting that not only do we have a meeting in the morning, but there is a change in that venue. It will be now in the James Pierce Building in the President's Conference Room, and I think that's room 309. You should have received an email yesterday from Abby Meese. You'll need to print out a parking pass and so forth. Just a little different drill than what we're accustomed to when we meet in
And that's at 8 a.m., correct?
8 a.m. Yes, ma'am. Also remind council of the work session on Tuesday, the 27th. And then lastly, Mayor Luttrell has become our custom in recent years. Staff would like to express their appreciation for your leadership during this past year. It's not many mayors get to lead through a pandemic, and all the challenges that brought. But also, there were a lot of moving parts to our plan of work this past year, and you saddled up every one of those issues, and you made all of those moving parts fit together in a very smooth way. And with that, we would like to present to you. This is kind of special too, in terms of Mr. Luttrell will present to Mayor Luttrell our the chronicles of your year as mayor. Thank you very much for your support.
Well, I'd be remiss to say that if it hadn't been for this team that we have here and all the staff and the team we have inside the city of Bristol, Tennessee, I don't think a lot of us would have had any restful nights this past year. So hats off to everyone, and I know that anything that comes before us, there's nothing we can't do together. Thank you.
I have a quick question, Mr. Soar, before we move on to comments.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way, I will not be available on the 27th, is there any way that we could consider, I think I asked about this before, and I'm not sure what the response was, of trying to bring the work session to the 19th? Is there any possibility of that?
That would be the pleasure of council.
I said I could, I've got a meeting at lunch, but could in the morning, or I could in the
I have a
afternoon.
conflict at lunch. I can't do it till late afternoon.
And I responded that it was really hard for me that because our work sessions are half a day.
Right.
So I don't really have that time
Okay.
during
Well, then
that
I'll make
week.
other arrangements to,
Yeah, and my family's headed to the beach the Saturday before. I'm going to leave after our work session on Tuesday
Right.
and join them. So
Okay.
it's not the best, but
I think there was also isn't there a planning, I think there's I'm good probably after 4 o'clock.
It's fine. I just wanted to put it out there so that I would know what direction I needed to take
planning
next.
commission.
I think there was a planning commission that kind of
6.
got in the way of that as well.
Okay. Then I'll go ahead and lead off with my comments. Is that where we are now?
Yes.
Well, we had a great meeting today with the school system, talking about how we're going to move forward, and we've been engaged with our county commission over the past several weeks as they work to determine their budget. And I think the one thing, my greatest takeaway in all of that is that we are county residents, and we are city residents, and most of us have had children or grandchildren or as individuals involved in the Bristol, Tennessee school system. I think that it's important that we realize that we're all moving together towards the end goal, and that's to be as forward-looking as we possibly can with our community. Having said that, the next several weeks, we will be working to establish our own tax rate. We did get back the state certified tax rate, but there are a lot of complexities that go into that. We did include the TIFs for different properties that have received the tax increment financing advantage. One reason that TIFs are included is so that we, as we explain establishing a tax rate, can discuss in greater detail transparency in taxation. So what properties did receive a TIF, how much were those TIFs, how long will those TIFs be in existence? And the thing about TIFs is that it appears that those revenues at that higher property tax rate on those TIFed properties will come back to us for our use. They do not. It is an advantage to the development to help them materialize so that we can, in the short term, pull the sales tax off of the properties if they are something that generate a sales tax. In other instances, it's an opportunity for us to have increased employment, and hopefully they will live here and contribute through property tax and sales tax. So while we do not actually get to collect and keep the accelerated property tax of properties that have been TIFed, there are advantages to having TIFed properties. Not to mention the fact that once the TIF has been met, for whatever period of time it has been established, we then have the advantage of pulling the higher rate of the property tax. Now, that's a whole lot of information that people may or may not have followed. I know 8 years ago, I probably didn't follow it, but we have been very immersed in this for quite some time, and how we go about setting the tax rate. I think it's very important that we understand that our community can only bear so much of a property tax rate. We have a lot of needs in our community, truly needs, that we are in hopes of being able to rise to the occasion to meet. But we have to look within our own community at what could be considered those assets that could be revenue generating to help to offset our movement forward without overburdening the property tax payer. Some thoughts that may begin to float out in the community is to accent our recreational tourism so that we put things in place that would be a natural draw from those outside of our community to come into our community to stay overnight, which would benefit us through sales tax and sales tax and occupancy tax. Another opportunity may be to use Viking Hall in a greater capacity to generate revenue. We are looking at recreational tourism. We are looking at destination tourism. Tourism is the #1 industry in the state of Tennessee. So in the next few weeks, we have several meetings. We have called meetings. We have a lot going on as we begin to move forward to establish the property tax rate. I would encourage everyone to be information seekers, and I would encourage us as your council and administrative staff to be informational sharers in the community. We're all in this together. What the county does, it impacts us directly. What we do directly impacts the school system, and we've all got to work collaboratively so that we have the best possible outcome. So I hope that you will keep us in your thoughts and prayers over the next few weeks as we go through this, that you will ask questions of us as we go through this so that we can present the very best possible outcome to move us forward. Thank you.
I'll say I really enjoyed our meeting today. A lot of good information from the school system. I think they have a really good plan focused moving forward. They actually combined studies from a 2006 facility study along with our 2017 studies facility. And you can tell that they put a lot of thought in the phases and the chronological order of the updated facilities should come. So it took a lot of work by several of their administrative staff members. So I thought it was really good information, and I hope we get to meet again soon, to hear further things. I'd like to say also, too, to our volunteers, we have a slate of folks. I didn't count how many people we appointed to different positions today, but it was a lot, and it really is one of those types of things that you can get involved in a particular committee or a commission and really learn a lot of things about the city. So I appreciate all of those, and congratulations to Malin and Vince. Look forward to your leadership over the next 12 months. Or maybe it's going to be 18. I don't know how we're going to do that anyway. We haven't talked about that, have we?
We haven't covered that yet.
Or into infinity and beyond.
Go ahead, Mark. I really don't.
So I just was going to note thanks and congratulations to the BTN and Community Relations for the recognition for the video. And we sing praises, but it's time to do that again for just what comes out of that office and the quality of the video and the TV for a community our size. It's beyond fantastic. We compete with the best of the best, and we do a great job with getting stuff out to our community and for it being great quality. The other is just, and if Mr. Sora or Mayor Luttrell can remember any numbers, but we've mentioned COVID several times this evening, and the Delta variant is reaching our area, and it is a whole lot worse. Our vaccination rate is not great. The folks who are getting it tend to be younger and get a lot sicker. And I'm just so grateful to be able to feel comfortable sitting here and not feeling like I need to wear a mask in this setting at this point. But I know y'all shared the numbers of admissions and a little bit of information.
The Delta variant is with us in Sullivan County now. That has been confirmed. From a vaccination percentage, we are just under 40% of our population is fully vaccinated with either the 2 vaccinations and the 2 weeks post with that, of which the science does indicate that there is a strong efficacy if you're 2 weeks past your second vaccine in terms of dealing with this Delta variant. From our Department of Health call on Friday, there was an uptick Thursday evening of cases admitted into the overall Ballard footprint, the 21, 22 counties that Ballard serves, but they did experience an uptick Thursday in admissions.
Also, I'll say I just got my hard copy of Business Journal and read. Scott Robertson who's the editor, has editorial that says, get vaccinated. This is serious. Also, we work hard on our tourism. We work hard on our economic development, and it matters. People look at us, and they look at moving here, and they look at us. So it's critical that we participate and that we help our area look good, and part of that is taking care of ourselves and taking care of others. So, thank you.
Okay, just like to recognize, some folks in the audience that's, come here tonight with us, Dr. Browder and his wife, Mayor Staten, his wife Peg, and Commissioner Aker. He came here for another reason as well, but it's, he shows up quite often and partakes in our meetings. Just really appreciate everyone that was able to come out tonight. The folks that got to witness everything on video from home, we certainly appreciate your attendance there as well. And just really want to thank this council for all the hard work that they do, and I sincerely appreciate the vote of confidence for another year serving as mayor. And I went to an event this morning that the TVA was putting on at the South Holston River, where the Weir Dam was at. And before the event started, I was able to talked to this lady and gentleman that was coming through, and they were from New Jersey. And they had been traveling down south, and they had come through Bristol on their way to the original destination, but they decided to come back. And so, and come here because of fishing. They even indicated that right now, from what they've seen, probably next year they'll be relocating to Sullivan County somewhere, just because of what goes on at the river. And TVA released some numbers today that the little section of the Holston River that just not far down below the dam, that they estimated generated about $4 million in tourism dollars last year. I know with COVID and everything, but still people got out and enjoying the outdoors and fishing. So it was a great event. They're coming back to do more and to stay longer. The assistant director of the assistant commissioner of tourism was there as well. So a lot of great compliments.
Did you bring us fish?
I
That's all we
had
care
to go to a
about.
meeting after this, so I had to hurry and get out of there. So again, thank everyone for being here tonight, and with that, meeting adjourned.